"I will not let this family sweep Chioke's sin under the mat," she screamed, her wrapper slipping from her shoulder. "He must face the wrath of our gods. Chioke will not escape this." The elders exchanged uncomfortable glances. Some shifted on their wooden stools, while others stared at the ground, hoping the weight of Nneka's rage wouldn't fall on them. "Nneka, Paanwafa, the eldest of them all," said in a voice meant to steady the storm. "Calm yourself. Anger will not solve this matter. Calm myself." Nneka whirled around to face him, her eyes blazing. "You want me to calm myself after Chioke destroyed my daughter's life? After he ruined Amara and left her carrying his child? Tell me, Paanwafa, what part of this makes you think I should be calm?" Some of the elders nodded in agreement, others exchanged worried glances. "This is not a matter to be rushed, Chioke," another elder said, his cane tapping the ground for emphasis. "Chioke is still one of us. We must be careful. This is a family matter." Nneka let out a bitter laugh that silenced the crowd. "Family matter," she spat. Was it family that made him force himself on Amara? Was it family that made him plant his evil seed in her? The Igbos have a cherished tradition of living with extended family members, which further improves communal living. It's common for older relatives to teach younger ones a trade or sponsor their education. As Christmas approached, families from the city began returning to the village, bringing with them excitement and expectations. Some came to pluck flowers, a local phrase meaning to find a bride among the village maidens, who were now of marrying age. Others were there to make business connections or seek opportunities. This was how Numdi, Amara's older brother, finally left for the White Manor land. Like many before him, he hoped to build a better future, not just for himself, but for his family as well. For others, it was an opportunity to ask a respected relative for help, perhaps a sponsorship for tuition, or an apprenticeship in one of the popular cities like Onitsha, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, or even Lagos. Nneka, a widow, had been without her husband, Ibe, for over 10 years. Despite being a woman of great beauty, she had refused to remarry after his passing, determined to raise their 2 children on her own. Life had dealt her an unfair hand, losing her husband so early, but she had persevered, staying strong for the sake of her children. The sun was beginning to dip behind the hills as Nneka walked steadily toward the family house. The village was buzzing with preparations for Christmas, and everywhere she looked, people were hurrying to finish their work before the festivities began. It was during this time of the year, when family gathered, that she had decided to finally approach Chioke, her late husband's brother, with her request. The air was thick with the scent of burning firewood and freshly plucked palm leaves, but Nneka hardly noticed. Today was the day she would ask him for a favor that could change her daughter's life. Amara, her only daughter, had just completed high school, and the future ahead of her stretched wide with possibilities. Nneka had watched her daughter grow with pride, her ambition evident in everything she did. Amara was smart, driven, and full of dreams. More than anything, she had always wanted to be more than just a village girl. Nneka had always known that Amara's heart belonged to something greater. At 17, she was ripe for marriage by the community's standards, but Nneka wasn't ready to let go just yet. She wasn't ready for her daughter to settle into the life of a wife and mother, not when there were still dreams to chase. As she approached the family house, Nneka sighed deeply, her thoughts turning to her late husband, Ibe. He had been a man who believed in hard work and community. He had done his best for their family, even though life had been tough. Now it was up to Nneka to ensure that Amara had a future beyond the village. She needed Chioke's help. Chioke had always been a kind man. He had worked hard to build his business in Onitsha, and though his life had its fair share of struggles, he had managed to make something of himself. His cloth-selling business had grown steadily over the years, and he had even managed to open a small shop in the city. But his success came with a price. He was too busy. Begging for his favor on phone would be a terrible decision. This Christmas, however, he had returned home for a few weeks, and Nneka saw it as the perfect opportunity to ask him for the help her daughter needed. She stepped into the family compound and saw the familiar sight of Chioke sitting on the veranda, sipping from a calabash of palm wine. His face lit up as he saw her approaching, and he immediately rose to greet her with a wide smile. "Nneka, my sister," he called out in greeting, his voice warm with familiarity. "How is my lovely sister-in-law doing? And how is your twin sister, Na?" He referred to Amara, who looked exactly like Nneka, his voice filled with affection. Nneka smiled, feeling a wave of comfort wash over her as she walked closer. Chioke had always called her his sister, and though they were not blood relatives by marriage, their bond was deep. She felt grateful for the kindness he had shown her throughout the years. "I am well, Na," Nneka replied, using the Igbo pet name for men. "It is good to see you again. I've brought you some fresh palm wine from the farm. I thought it would be nice for us to catch up." Chioke chuckled, taking the calabash from her hands. "You know the way to my heart, Nneka. You've always had a good sense of timing. Come, sit with me. Let's talk." Nneka sat beside him, the familiar scent of palm wine filling the air as they both took a sip. For a moment they sat in silence, catching up on the news of the village, the children, and the passing of time. "Na, how is business?" She feigned concern. It was an African custom to ask after people's well-being before begging for favors. "Glory to God, oh. With many sleepless nights, I now have over 1,000 retailers I supply when my container lands," Chioke spoke with so much pride. His sweats were finally paying off. "Chai, your chi is good. Was it not just 3 years ago you left our village for Onitsha?" Nneka was beyond shock. Did their Catholic priest not say money takes time? No wonder he looks so good. His glowing skin and his protruding stomach is a testament of his newly found wealth. "That's correct. Anything is possible with hard work, my sister. No wife remain like this." They both roared in laughter. He could tell the next subject they would discuss. It felt good to be in his presence, to talk without the weight of worry pressing down on her shoulders. But she couldn't delay her request any longer. Her heart pounded in her chest as she glanced at Chioke, hoping he would understand. "Na," Nneka began softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "I need your help. You know how Amara has always been such a bright girl, full of dreams. She has finished her high school education, and I believe she is ready for more. I want her to go to Onitsha and further her studies, but I cannot afford it. The money is too much for me to bear alone." Chioke's face softened as he listened, his expression thoughtful. He had always been a man of few words, but when he spoke, it was with wisdom and experience. He leaned back slightly, looking up at the sky as if to gather his thoughts before responding. "I know Amara, Nneka," he said slowly. "She is a hard-working girl, and I see the fire in her. She has the potential to be something great. But you also know how things are in the city. It is not easy, and there are many challenges. The world is changing, and we must change with it. But I also know that you have always done what is best for your children." Nneka's heart skipped a beat as Chioke continued. "I will take Amara with me to Onitsha," he said, his voice firm yet compassionate. "I will make sure she has the opportunity to further her education, and I will support her tuition. She deserves the chance to become more, just like you said. But you must remember, Nneka, that she is going into a world that will test her. It will not be easy for her, but she will have the chance to prove herself." Tears welled up in Nneka's eyes as she reached out to clasp Chioke's hand, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you, Na. You have no idea how much this means to me. Amara will make you proud, I promise. I will make sure she is ready for what comes next. Thank you for giving her this chance." Chioke smiled, his weathered face crinkling with, "Go and prepare her, Nneka. Tell her that the city awaits her and it will be her time to shine. But remember, no matter where life takes her, she will always have a family to return to." Nneka nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of relief and hope. This was the first step toward Amara's future, and with Chioke's help she knew her daughter could achieve everything she dreamed of. It was a Christmas gift she would never forget. Amara stood at the edge of her small room, looking at the few belongings she had carefully packed for the journey ahead. The wooden trunk lay open, and inside were her few clothes, a book or two, and a small bundle of hope. A part of her was excited, eager for the opportunity to start something new, to chase the dreams she had held in her heart for so long. But there was also a deep pang of sorrow that tugged at her chest, one that she could not shake. Her mother, Nneka, was standing by the door, watching her with a mixture of pride and sadness. Amara could see the effort it took for her mother to keep her composure, but the tears were there, just beneath the surface. It was hard for Nneka to let go, to send her only daughter to the city where life would be so different, so uncertain. "Are you sure you have everything?" Nneka asked, her voice thick with emotion as she looked over the things Amara had packed. "Do you have your papers? And your shoes?" Amara smiled, trying to ease her mother's worries. "Yes, Mama, I'm ready. I've packed everything I need. Don't worry." But Nneka couldn't help herself. She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around Amara, pulling her close. The two of them stood there for a moment, silent, holding each other tightly as if the world might fall apart if they let go. "I'll miss you so much," Nneka whispered, her voice trembling. "You've always been my strength, Amara. Go and make me proud, but always remember, no matter where you are, you have a home here with me." Amara squeezed her mother back, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. "I will, Mama. I'll make you proud. I'll work hard and become the woman I've always dreamed of being." After a long, quiet moment, Amara stepped back and wiped her eyes. She quickly changed the subject. "I'll be back to visit soon, Mama. You'll see me shining in the city." Nneka smiled, though her eyes were still glistening with tears. "I know you will, my daughter. Now, go." With a heavy heart, Amara picked up her bags and walked out of the house, the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her journey to Onitsha had begun. When Amara arrived in Onitsha, the city's skyline greeted her with towering buildings, crowded streets, and an overwhelming buzz of activity. It was everything she had imagined and more. She had heard stories of how the city was full of opportunity and dreams waiting to be realized, but standing in the middle of it all, she felt small and insignificant. This was not the village. This was a world that demanded you fight for your place, a place where dreams didn't come easily. Uncle Chioke's place wasn't what she had expected. She had heard him boast about his successful okrika business, selling second-hand clothes, but there was no shop filled with neatly stacked piles of clothes waiting to be sold. Instead, they arrived at a dimly lit bar, the sign outside flashing in neon lights. The sound of laughter and music drifted through the open door. A thick smell of alcohol and smoke hung in the air. "Where are we, Uncle?" Amara asked, her voice layered with confusion as she looked at her uncle, who was busy greeting customers at the door. "Don't worry, Amara," Chioke said with a smile, guiding her inside. "This is my business now. Things have changed, but don't worry, we will get you settled. I told you about the work at the bar, remember? This is where you'll start. You'll earn enough money to cover your tuition." Amara's stomach dropped. This wasn't what she had imagined. The bar was no place for a young woman like her, but she had little choice. Her dreams of becoming an accountant impossible now. Over the next few weeks, Amara settled into a new routine. She served drinks to the regulars, flashing a polite smile as she carried tray after tray of palm wine, beer and other alcoholic drinks to the tables. Some of the men were kind, others lust after her, but Amara kept her distance from such men. She knew what this place was, and she had no intention of becoming one of the women who worked in the brothel at the back of the bar. No, she would hold on to her dignity, even if it meant making small sacrifices. Instead, Amara worked diligently at the bar. She served drinks and kept her head down, always doing her best. But deep inside, she still had her sights set on something greater. Every morning she would offer tutoring to the children who couldn't afford school fees. She had grown up in a family that valued education, and she knew that knowledge was the key to unlocking a better life. In exchange for her lessons, the children gave her 100 naira each day, a small but meaningful contribution to her savings. She spent hours talking with the waitresses at the bar, telling them about her goal of becoming an accountant. They listened, some of them skeptical, others impressed by her ambition. They would often ask her what she planned to do once she saved enough money for school. "I'm going to be a brilliant accountant," Amara told them, her voice full of hope. "I know it won't be easy, but I'll work hard for it. No one will stop me." The waitresses nodded, some of them exchanging looks. Amara's words resonated with them, and they could see the fire in her eyes. They, too, had dreams, some of them big, some of them small, but they all understood that the city was a place where dreams could either come alive or be crushed. Despite the difficulties, Amara remained focused. Her work at the bar was hard, and the pressure to fit in with the other girls was constant, but she kept reminding herself that this was only temporary. She would not let this be her life forever. She was determined to rise above it, to make something of herself. Amara's dreams of a better life, of a future where she could wear a suit and sit behind a desk in a bright office, were still alive in her heart. And as she poured drinks for the regulars, her mind wandered to the future, to the day when she would walk into a classroom as a student, not a waitress. That day would come. She just had to keep going. It was a Thursday evening, one of the rare nights when the bar was quiet. Amara was finishing her shift, wiping down the counter as the last set of customers stumbled out, leaving behind the stale air of alcohol and smoke. She had grown accustomed to the environment, the dim lights, the constant hum of conversation, the sounds of glasses clinking, and the music playing softly in the background. It was a world that was so different from the peaceful village she had once known, yet it had become her reality. "Amara, come here. I need to talk to you," he said, his voice low and strained. Her heart skipped a beat. She had grown to respect and trust her uncle, even though he was the one who had brought her into this life. She had to admit that she was a little wary of the man who had helped her, but she had convinced herself that he was just doing what he thought was best for her. When she entered the small, dimly lit office, Chioke was sitting at his desk, a half-empty bottle of beer in front of him. He motioned for her to sit, his eyes scanning her face with an unreadable expression. "Why are your gender heartless?" Chioke had just suffered his 8th heartbreak. The girls he meets are often gold diggers who want to marry men who look like models, 6-packs with Iroko height. But Uncle Chioke is a 5-deeft, pot-belly man who recently hit wealth. They want his money and not him. "Uncle, you know you have an horrible taste when it comes to women. You go for women who doesn't want you. See, this is not the place to sulk, oh. Let's be on our way." He tried dragging him to his feet. But Uncle Chioke pulled her sit. He gestured, tapping his hands on his laps. "Sit, Amara," he repeated, his tone more insistent now. Amara sat on a chair opposite him instead, nervously clasping her hands in her lap. She looked around the room, avoiding her uncle's gaze. "You've been doing well here," Chioke said after a moment of silence. "You're hard-working, and I can see that you have a bright future ahead of you. But I think you're ready for something else now." Amara's heart began to race. She wasn't sure what he meant, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She had heard rumors about him, but she refused to believe them until now. Her uncle's words were unsettling. "Amara, you're a beautiful girl," he continued, his voice softening. "You've grown into a woman, and I think you're ready for more. You don't have to keep working here forever. You can have more. We can have more." Before she could react, he stood up in his drunken state and moved closer to her, his hand reaching out to touch her cheek. He then grabbed one of her succulent boobs. She tried to pull away, but he was too close. "Uncle, please," she stammered, her voice trembling as she pushed him away. "This is wrong. This isn't what I came here for. I don't want this. Please." But Chioke was relentless. His hand tightened around her arm, pulling her closer. "Amara," he whispered, his breath hot on her neck. "You've always been mine in a way. You just didn't know it. But now, you'll see. I've been patient long enough." In that moment, Amara felt trapped. There was no escape. Her dreams of becoming an accountant, of building a life for herself, seemed like distant memories, things that had no place in the world she was now trapped in. And as her uncle's hands moved over her heart shattered. The next morning, Amara woke up with a heaviness she couldn't explain. Her body felt foreign, as if she was no longer in control. She lay there in the small bed in the office. She had shared it with her uncle, staring at the ceiling, unable to make sense of what had happened. Uncle Chioke had left, leaving her to contemplate the events of the previous night. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the images, the feeling of his hands on her, the words he had whispered in her ear. She felt like a stranger in her own body. Over the following days, things only became more complicated. Chioke kept coming back to her, as if nothing had happened. He acted as though he was doing her a favor, showing her how much he cared, but it was all twisted. It wasn't love. It was manipulation, control, and a betrayal of everything she had ever trusted. Amara knew it was wrong. She had tried to fight it, but he was always there, always with her. It was as if he had trapped her in a web, and no matter how much she wanted to break free, she couldn't. And so, Amara kept her head down, continued working at the bar, and kept up with the pretense that everything was normal, but for how long? Join me next time for part 2 of this captivating story. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Before you go, help me grow this community. Hit that like button for more thrilling content, subscribe for new uploads, comment below with your theories and reactions. Share with friends and family who love a good story. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being an amazing part of this journey.